Hello everybody and welcome back to HoundClan. This is year 5, so if you're confused, make sure to start at year 1, which will be linked in the description. I also have a family tree set up for this clan that should be updated by the time this video comes out. Also, happy Pride Month! Like I said before, it's time for year 5, and oh boy! Remember how I said you all weren't ready? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. The main one is that I made an animatic. There won't be bonus pictures because of that, but I made an animatic, so let's start with that. Fickle Feather is relaxing by the river, cleaning her fur after a long swim, when she notices something rippling in the water. Thinking it might be a fish, she looks closer, only to see Sorrelback's face appear in the water. He tells Fickle Feather that his sister, Sapling Crest, and her family are in danger, and even though he knows his sister hasn't always been the kindest to her, Fickle Feather might be the only one who can help. Fickle Feather has a feeling she knows what it's about, and doesn't hesitate to agree, asking Sorrelback to tell her everything. That night, an exhausted Sapling Crest is curled up in the nursery with her mate and their newborn kits. She tries to relax in the happiness, but she can't when she knows what awaits her. She tries to stay awake, but she's already forced herself to stay awake for several days now, and this time exhaustion wins and she falls asleep. Sapling Crest wakes up and feels her heart sink as she once again finds herself in the dark forest. She tries to run and hide like she normally does, but she's stopped by Hush Star. As he blocks her escape, Sapling Crest hisses at him, declaring that she already told them she wasn't interested in anything they could offer and to leave her alone. Anything? Hush Star asks her. How about the lives of your kids? Hush Whisper emerges from the shrubbery, carrying in his jaws one of Sapling Crest's few-day-old kittens, Gentle Kit. He sets the kit down in front of Hush Star, as if daring Sapling Crest to try and grab him. Hush Star tells Sapling Crest that he's a patient cat. If she doesn't want to accept his offer and his training, he can simply kill her and give the same offer to her son. Or perhaps he should do it anyways, as the kit already seems like a better offer than his coward of a mother. Hush Whisper tells Sapling Crest that he will give her until the moon sets to accept his offer, or to prepare for her death. He doesn't care either way. He stalks away, his son trailing behind him. Sapling Crest rushes to Gentle Kit and tries to wake him up, hoping to pull him out of the dark forest, but nothing seems to work. Tears rush to her eyes as she curls up around him, holding her kit for what might be the last time. Sometime later, she hears the sound of paw steps and looks up, shocked to see Fickle Feather standing there. She stands protectively over her son and demands to know if Fickle Feather is working with Hush Star. Fickle Feather says she wouldn't ever. She's here to help. The exhausted and terrified Sapling Crest says that she doesn't believe her, and this is Fickle Feather's only chance to back off. Sapling Crest will die before she lets them take her kid away. Any other threats die on her tongue as the nervous Sorrelback appears next to Fickle Feather. The StarClan cat rushes forward, nuzzling his sister and whispering that he's missed her so much, but they don't have time to talk. He and Fickle Feather are here to help, and they need to escape while they still can. Sapling Crest looks between the two cats. She has many questions, but she knows they can wait. She picks up Gentle Kit, and they all move to leave with Fickle Feather leading the way. As they near the edge of the dark forest, Fickle Feather hears a noise. As she turns to face it, she's lunged at by Hush Whisper, who slashes his claws across her face as he knocks them both to the ground. Fickle Feather reacts quickly, using her back paws to shove Hush Whisper off of her. He loses his grip and yowls in pain as her claws dig into his belly, the same spot Fickle Feather's mother, Brown Rapid, gave him his killing blow. As he stumbles back, she rushes forward to meet him with a slash of her claws. The two cats descend into yowls and vicious blows as Sapling Crest and Sorrelback look on, frozen in terror. This is a side of the usually tranquil Fickle Feather that neither of them had ever seen. Though Hush Whisper had the element of surprise, Fickle Feather has knowledge. She knew the forest, and she knew the dark forest cats and how they fought. He soon found himself knocked to the ground once again, with a bloodied Fickle Feather standing between him and his target. As he moved to stand up, Fickle Feather hissed at him to give up. She would not let any more harm come to her clanmates. He will let them leave, or they'll find out what happens when a cat in the dark forest dies again. Hush Whisper sneers at them, saying that leaving will do nothing. Even if they make it back to the land of the living, the dark forest will find a way to get them again. They're just delaying the inevitable, like the fools they are. An angered Sapling Crest hisses that Hush Whisper is a coward, so desperate for approval that he'll do anything his father tells him to. Hush Whisper snarls back that she's wrong. She doesn't know anything. He's no coward. He's loyal. He's the only cat who's always been loyal. Fickle Feather stares at him, her expression softening somewhat, as she says that she knows he's loyal to Hush Star, but is Hush Star truly loyal to him? Would Hush Star put himself in harm's way to protect his son? Would he fight for him like Hush Whisper fights for his father? Hush Whisper yowls and says that they're fools and he won't listen to them. Hush Star loves him, and they'll win this war as father and son. Sorrelback, encouraged by Fickle Feather's bravery, courageously asks if Hush Whisper truly believes that, when his father only ever spends time with him when he's useful. Why is he left to wander the dark forest alone until Hush Star needs something of him? Hush Whisper hesitates, and then quickly declares that that's just how it is. His father is preparing him for the future. When they get what his father wants, everything will be better. It has to get better. What about what you want? Sapling Crest asks. The Dark Forest cat goes silent again, confused and uncertain, as if he had never really thought about what he's wanted before. Fickle Feather asks if any of this is what he wants. Does he really want to kill them? Does he really want to kill the innocent gentle kit? Or is that what his father has told him that he wants? Hush Whisper looks at them, more conflicted than he's ever been. Then, he turns and runs away, leaving them all behind. Taking this chance, the group escapes the dark forests, finding themselves in the gentle blue of the dream space. Sorrelback and Sapling Crest nuzzle again, and Sapling Crest tearfully apologizes, saying she should have been a better sister. Sorrelback tells her it's in the past. He's seen her mourn and regret for moons now. He just wants her to be happy. With that in mind, he tells her that he can offer her protection. He can watch over her dreams and make sure that she doesn't get pulled into the dark forest ever again. Sapling Crest thinks about accepting it, but then she looks at the calm bravery of Fickle Feather and the small, slumbering kit in her paws, and asks that Sorrelback instead watch over her children. She knows someone who can help her whenever the dark forest tries to pull her in again. She looks at Fickle Feather and apologizes for the way she treated her, saying she knows that they have gotten along better this past year, but she never truly apologized, and she should have a long time ago. Fickle Feather smiles, accepting her apology. She tells Sapling Crest that she's happy to have her as a friend, and promises that no matter what the dark forest tries on them, they'll face it together. Sorrelback smiles, his shoulders slumped in relief, but Sapling Crest knows her brother, and she can tell he's hesitating about something. She asks him what's wrong, and he tells her that he's not sure. He just knows that things are not over yet. Suddenly, Sorrelback's eyes glow white, and he gives the cats a prophecy. The mists will stalk, and the hounds will burn. The forest will fall to the jagged star. The next morning, the two cats tell their leader, deputy, and the head medicine cat everything that happened, including the prophecy. They are uncertain what it could mean, and while Plumeria, a prophecy interpreter, was able to parse some meaning from it, none of them are sure what it could all lead to, but it is a dreadful warning either way. The older cats exchange worried looks. Flower Patch's face is severe. In her younger years, she spent a lot of time in the dark forest. She knows the cats that prowl there like the back of her paw. She tells the other cats that she believes Fickle Feather and Sapling Crest's story, and she knows this may be the only warning they get. They need to prepare. The older cats agree and convene to discuss more details of what could happen. Oakleaf worriedly urges her mate to try and rest in the nursery, while Hazelstorm gently, protectively leads his daughter back to the medicine den to rest, fussing all the while. Fickle Feather is silent, worry squeezing at her heart. She sees her own feelings reflected in Sapling Crest's expression. They want to be comforted by the older cats and their words, but they aren't sure how they can prepare when none of them know what the Dark Forest cats are planning, or what the words of the prophecy were warning them about. But, soon after this event, Fickle Feather, Sapling Crest, and the rest of the clan would realize what those words meant, when a fire rages through the forest. Yep, we had a mass extinction event this year. Oh no, wait, let me check my notes. We didn't have just one, we had 3. You heard that right, 3! You may be wondering, how is that possible? I will admit, the first one was me. There were so many cats that when the game said that a few got injured in a fire, I created a fire generator to slim down the clan a bit. But then the game decided to do its own fire mass extinction later on, and at the very end of the year it also decided to hit us with another one. This time it was a flood, which makes perfect sense considering all the fires, but I still screamed when I saw it. I will say I also did roll for both fires to see if any evil cats may have caused it, or if it was just something more simple. Well, the first fire was caused by Two Legs not properly putting out their campfire. The second one was not an accident. But more on that later, because we have lost a lot of cats. So many that if I were to speed paint them, we would be here all day. So the StarClan section is going to be more of a slideshow for all of our sakes. I was going to make an animatic for it, but I was already making the one you just saw, and as I was writing the script for the fire animatic, I got really sad. So slideshow it is, even if it still makes me sad. Without further ado, get ready for pain, as we move into a quicker but also way longer than usual StarClan section. Aldercall was the first casualty. She didn't die in the fire, she actually died after being bitten by a venomous snake and succumbing to its venom. Her mate, Ragged, actually survived the first fire, albeit with some injuries, but was killed in the flood at the end of the year. He did get to watch his apprentice become a warrior, and was proud of both of his children, but hated that he outlived one of them, even if it was only for a few moons. The first death of the two-leg-caused fire was Lilypaw, who sacrificed himself so that the new warrior, Duskfeather, could get to safety. He died young, but he didn't regret his decision. He would rather one of them live than both of them die. Rosemarypaw was trapped in the flames without a way out and died, heartbroken to find her brother Lilypaw arriving in StarClan alongside her. Weedpelt and Willowthrift died together as they helped carry their children to safety, with both unfortunately failing to escape themselves. They watch over their mate and living kits with the rest of the First Star family, hoping the clan can overcome the tragedies. Fleckphrase was a new arrival who joined the clan with his 4 kits, all of whom he managed to get out of harm's way, but he succumbed to smoke damage soon after. Beamfog and his new mate, Ruebelly, had a fast romance and even had a kit together, which they managed to get to safety before both of them succumbed to their wounds. They both wish they had more time with their child, but are watching over him the best they can from StarClan. Sporefrost and Tigersaur died helping injured cats escape the first fire, and were later joined by their mate, Katie, who had taken over as HoundClan's deputy until he perished in the flood as well. Hazelstorm was one of the cats that escaped the medicine den, but went back to try and find his siblings and kits, dying in the process. Rivergrove had been injured at the beginning of the year, and unfortunately couldn't keep up with the other cats fleeing the medicine den. Oakleaf managed to get Sapling Crest and their children out of the nursery safely, but at the cost of her own life. Green Thunder, in her panic, couldn't find a way out of the fire and eventually succumbed to smoke and flames. Yellowfeather did manage to escape the forest fire, but was badly injured and died of his wounds afterwards. Dazzlepaw helped Brindlegrowl escape the fire, and frantically went back in to try and find his mother, but was killed in the flames during the attempt. Civet Stripe and Dangerpelt were both trapped in the Elder's Den and unable to escape, and told the younger cats to leave them behind and save themselves. They lived long lives after all. After the first fire, there were several deaths as the clan scrambled to recover. Swarm Shiver had been injured in the forest fire and died of their injuries a few moons later. Zara had been badly injured earlier in the year, and while she escaped the fire, her infected wound only got worse, and it eventually killed her. Beside her, Hornet Dusk was killed in the flood while trying to help their remaining children escape. After losing their mate and 2 kits from the fire, they weren't going to lose anyone else. While a little shocked to find themselves in StarClan, they're happy to reunite with their family and watch over their remaining kits. Goldpaw was a new arrival, one of 3 kits adopted by Willowthrift, Weedpelt, and First Star, who unfortunately died when attacked by rogues on her second patrol. Conquer, Skip, and Root Climb also died on the same patrol, taken out by the rogues as they desperately searched for food and a safe place for the clan to move. They're together with their family in StarClan, but they miss their remaining family dearly. Sleek Mist died on the same patrol with his parents, and although he had adjusted to StarClan, he still feels lost and worries about his living family members constantly. Dapplecit was one of Oakleaf and Sapling Crest's kits, who was a sickly kit and died of kitten cough just a few months before their apprentice ceremony. The first victim of the second not-an-accident fire was Pinepaw, who was only a short time away from their warrior name. Icepaw, who is doing their best to stay positive in StarClan, and visits their last living siblings' dreams whenever they can to try and cheer them up. Brindlegrowl may have survived the first fire, but I think they were badly injured by the smoke damage, and when the second fire hit, she just didn't have the strength to escape. She's heartbroken, but looks after her sister constantly, proud of how much she's accomplished despite everything. Squirrel Kit often wonders what they did, or what their clan did to deserve such pain. He is hopeful their living clanmates and family can find peace, and tries to cheer himself up by listening to stories about the clan's history from older StarClan cats. Starlingpaw was trying desperately to help their clanmates escape the fire, but lost their own life in the process. Aphid Glint is furious, especially knowing what StarClan knows. She paces the border of the Dark Forest constantly, but knows better than to cross it. She just wishes she could claw the fur off of the cats who left their clan suffering such great losses. Elm Bramble is happy to see Doveprance again. They miss their mother dearly, but they hate leaving their brother behind. They were partners in crime, but they want their family to live long, happy lives before joining them in StarClan. And even if Zinniapaw does do some shenanigans, she's not going to snitch. Partners in crime, after all. And finally, the flood deaths. Scrubpaw was an excellent apprentice and making great strides, but nothing could have prepared him for such a horrible flood. He's just relieved that some of his siblings made it out alive. Comfrey Fluff's time may have been short in the clans, but she did get a chance to train an apprentice and remains very proud of them even after her death. She watches over the new generation of cats and is optimistic for HoundClan's future despite everything that happened. Cricketstock actually became mates this year with Buckstride. They were super cute, but the second fire took them both since Cricketstock refused to leave behind his injured mate. They're together in StarClan, and Cricketstock is looking after his sister and Buckstride is watching over his son. Both of them worry about the Dark Forest and what the cats inside of it might be planning. Coco Curl is sad to be in StarClan. She wishes she had more time alive and wishes she could have confessed her feelings to Shivering Fade when she had the chance. However, she is very worried about him and his Dark Forest connection, and while she wants to believe in the cat she loves, she knows how dangerous and manipulative the Dark Forest can be. Fudge was still struggling with all the tragedy of this year, and that combined with her age was too much for her when the second fire came around. She was able to help guide her remaining family to safety and gave in to her injuries shortly after. Sprucepaw was working hard and likely would have become a warrior early, but didn't have a chance as the flood took them away. They're happy to see their father and Pinepaw, but wish they could speak to their living friends and family again. Goldenstripe and Acacia were also victims of the flood. Yeah, Acacia returned right after the first fire, survived the second, had kids, and then died at the end of the year. Their only comfort in StarClan is their family, the fact that they have each other, and the fact that their beloved kits are in good paws. Brightbone is happy to see Root climb again, but is heartbroken to leave her family behind. She hates seeing Daisy, Spike, and Hayflood so sad, and hopes both of them will have a brighter future next year. Garlic Moon was only in the clan for about a year, but she was truly a delight. She was welcomed warmly into StarClan and is happy to meet more of HoundClan, but she still can't help but worry about the living cats, and hopes they can recover from all the tragedy. The last death of this year was Partridge Paw, one of Fudge's kits from her second litter. And of course the game had to kill the kit she named after her best friend Partridge Snap, didn't they? And that's what I meant when I said you weren't ready. We lost so many cats and so many were hard hitters. With so much tragedy in one year, how are our living cats handling it, I wonder? Well, let's find out by beginning with our leader. The 131-moon-old First Star is having a very rough year. She gave birth to her and Weedpelt's single kit, but also lost a life to Greencough that same moon. Then, just as she was recovering, the fires happened. She lost both of her mates, several of her children, and a lot of lives in the process of trying to save her clanmates. She's down to 4 now and was badly scarred from the first fire. As of the end of the year, she's still very shaken by everything, especially after learning who caused the second fire, but more on that later. Since then, she's been thinking of battle strategies and has been counting her lives. She's feeling very protective of her clanmates, but also very hopeless at the same time. After all, there's not much left for them to defend. HoundClan's forest is gone, and the place they were staying is still very flooded. Patrols are constantly finding trespassing rogues and two-leg traps, too. It seems as though there's no place for them here anymore, and that's why First Star's decided it's time for the clan to move. She has announced this to the rest of the clan, and most of them are on board with the plan, since they don't really have any other choice. She hasn't announced this to the other clans yet, but they plan to move next year. With the help of a cat who has come to guide them, she hopes they'll make it safely, and if they do, maybe she'll do what she's been considering all year and retire. However, she refuses to even consider that until the clan she vowed to protect is safe, and unfortunately safe seems to be somewhere far, far away. Up next is our newest deputy, Sapling Crest. At 36 moons old, she's pretty young for a deputy, but that hasn't stopped her from protecting her clan. She's still grieving the loss of her mate and 3 out of her 5 kits, each of their deaths shattering her heart a little more. She's become extremely protective of her 2 remaining children and puts on an extremely tough and aggressive facade to the other clans. Truthfully, she's exhausted and barely holding herself together. It's only thanks to her friends' support that she can handle it, especially when she still finds herself occasionally dragged into the Dark Forest. She also has started to reconnect with her younger sister, Stoutbranch, too. There's still a bit of awkwardness between them, but they're happy to have each other after losing their father. She's one of the few cats who knows about who truly caused the second fire, and First Star's plans to retire. She initially was furious and wanted to fight rather than run away, but anyone could see that the clan was in no condition to fight the enemy awaiting them. She hates to admit it, but leaving might be their best option. Sapling Crest is very worried for the future. After all that HoundClan has lost, she's not sure they can ever be the clan they were when she was young. She also worries about if she could truly be a cat worthy of leading HoundClan, but she tries to push those thoughts aside the best she can. Right now, she just wants to prepare for the journey ahead and keep what little family she has left safe. Up next is Flower Patch, who is still the head medicine cat at 149 moons old. Much like a lot of other cats, Flower Patch is really struggling this year. She lost 2 of her kits this year and feels partially to blame for it. She feels like she should have been able to figure out the prophecy sooner. Maybe then cats wouldn't have had to die. That includes her son, Beamfog, the cat that she was never truly able to reconnect with. She also feels bad because during the fire she kind of panicked. She remembers the fires that destroyed HoundClan's old home when Mornstar was killed, and in the chaos of the fire she truly thought StarClan was trying to punish them again. However, after she learned who truly started the second fire, she felt some of her anger of her younger years return. She wanted to punish those who did this to their clan, but she's also so tired. To the point that when First Star discussed her plan to move away, she agreed right away. She hates that HoundClan has to move once more, but she would rather live out her last moons in a place with a bright future than one haunted by old memories. She hopes to retire alongside First Star and let the younger cats lead, but she's not sure at her age she'll be able to survive the journey. Truth be told, she doesn't care. As long as her remaining family makes it to their new home, that's all that matters to her. The 81-moon-old Daisy Spike is up next, and he's struggling. He lost his younger brother Buckstride, his daughter Brightbone, and Root Climb. Although he still has the troublesome personality, I think a lot of his old anxieties are coming back. He's afraid of staying in what's left of the forest, especially with the enemies they might be facing, but he's also afraid of leaving. He worries that whatever new home they find may be just as bad or even worse. He's trying his best to be there for his remaining kin, especially Hayflood and his grandchildren, but the memories of the fires and floods still haunt him. He wishes he could get away from it all for a bit, but every scorched tree and muddy paw step reminds him of all that's happened. Even with the arrival of another healer in Clan, he still feels like there's not enough of them and that disaster could strike at any time. Honestly, I feel like a lot of this panic stems from the fact he feels responsible for Buckstride and Cricketstalk's deaths, especially since his little brother was injured and in the medicine den at the time. He feels like if he had been faster, better, then maybe his family would still be alive. I feel really bad for him, and I hope the future and the new territory can be kinder to him. Up next is a new arrival, Kestrel. They're 46 moons old and are the cat who is going to guide HoundClan to their new home. They joined in the very last moon of the year, so there's not much to say about them. In-game, they offered their healing skills to the clan and then did one patrol where they gathered oak leaves, but lore-wise I'm saying they showed up with the oak leaves packed with traveling herbs and asked to speak to the clan, announcing that StarClan has shown them the perfect place for HoundClan to call their new home. And while the cats were understandably bewildered, their confidence and great speaker trait helped them prove they were serious. This confidence has also helped them to connect with a lot of the cats already, as they weren't nervous with making new friends or being themselves. I will say that I am planning to create other clans that will be with HoundClan in this new territory, but I'm not sure if Kestrel is from them or not. While they were led here by a starry-furred cat, so were cats who used to be loners. So, I don't know. They've only been here for 1 moon though, so I'm not certain one way or the other. What do you guys think? Either way, I'm excited to learn more about them. Shivering Fade is up next and is a full medicine cat now. He is 22 moons old, sneaky, and a good kid sitter. Honestly, I'm really worried about him. His arrogance and ego seems to have shriveled away after he had to watch so many cats, including his father, die without a way to stop it. Currently, he isn't training with Berlioz in the Dark Forest. He feels betrayed by the cat, who claimed that he could teach Shivering Fade to be powerful. What's the point in power if he can't save the ones he loves? He's grown into an extremely morbid cat, worrying a lot of his clanmates when he took an apprentice. It wasn't the apprentice part that worried them, it was the fact that he explained it by saying he wouldn't be around forever when he wasn't even 20 moons old yet. Honestly, I can't really blame him for feeling this way, especially when his apprentice and many others died, and I think that definitely strengthened his current morbid behavior. As of the end of the year, he still seems to be in sort of a daze. He doesn't interact much with others, and most of his monthly statuses have been about mixing up the leader's herbs, which I'm not taking as malicious. I think it's more that he's so unfocused that he doesn't really pay attention to the things he's doing. The other healers make sure to double check his work, but they don't want to make him stop working, because at least if he's helping them in the den, it might take his mind off of stuff. As for his opinions on the move, I don't think he really has one. Right now he feels like the clan is cursed and that no matter where he goes, death is going to follow. Furs is 118 moons old and, well, still Furs. Even when approaching elder age, she still is as chaotic as ever. One of the chaotic things being that she decided to remind me I forgot to turn off the unmated cats having kits setting by announcing she was expecting some. She had 2 kits secretly, who we will talk about later, and she and her kits escaped the fires and floods unscathed. That doesn't mean she hasn't been shaken by the events, she definitely has been and was in shock for a little bit, but Furs is putting her confidence to use this year as much as she can. She knows that a lot of cats, especially her apprentice and the others, need some sort of stability in their life. She's doing her best to be that for them, telling stories and allowing them to goof off when she gets the chance. She doesn't want any of the younger cats to feel hopeless and is a shoulder for them to cry on or a voice for them to laugh with. Her tail was badly injured by a falling tree branch, which lore-wise I'm saying happened while escaping the flood, so she's recovering from that right now, but she's still keeping her optimistic attitude up and playing pranks where she can. She's clever enough to know when to tone it down, but when she doesn't have to, she's doing her best to cheer others up. Secretly, she does worry a lot about the future, though, and hopes that the new home Kestrel promises is real and safe. But no matter what happens, she's going to do her best to raise spirits and make her clanmates smile. Up next, we have the 92-moon-old Plumeria with her 3 adopted kits. The 4-moon-old Muddle Kit, who is daring and quick to make peace, and the 3-moon-old twins, Aspen Kit and Dragon Kit. Aspen Kit is a know-it-all and quick-witted, and Dragon Kit is an attention seeker and a picky nest builder. Muddle Kit was an abandoned kit she found and took in, while Aspen Kit and Dragon Kit are the children of the deceased Golden Stripe and Acacia that she adopted after the flood. Also, side note, since this is the only place I can really mention it, Aspen Kit and Dragon Kit have Mistclan blood, as Golden Stripe's mother was Astrid Spot of Mistclan. Plumeria always wanted kits, but she wishes more than anything that these children didn't have to face tragedy so young. And that's not even bringing up the fact that Plumeria is actually pregnant right now. Truth be told, I actually wasn't planning to let her have any until these 3 were grown up, but this girl snuck off to visit a cat and root clan 2 patrols in a row. So I did a dice roll, higher than 10 meant she was expecting, and I rolled a nat 20. I am going to say here that Plumeria is 100% arrow ace. She's never been interested in romance or anything like that, but she's always wanted a family. She and this cat are good friends, and he happily agreed to be a donor for her. You may ask, why didn't she find a donor that wasn't in another clan? Well, it's Plumeria, and she does what she wants. Plus, the Cat and Root clan, who we'll talk about later, also has a troublesome personality, so I doubt he cares much about the rules either. Beyond her kits, Plumeria is harboring a lot of guilt. She feels like she should have figured out the prophecy sooner. If she had, maybe they could have avoided this. However, I think Plumeria is also smart enough to realize that she could have never predicted that a cat would do something so cruel as burning down their home. Not even Hushstar went that far. The only reason she even believes it is because she saw their actions with her own eyes. Plumeria witnessed the cat causing the second fire, but it was right at the end, and they got away before she could do anything about it. But after all that, she's more than ready to move. More than anything right now, she wants her kits to be able to grow up somewhere safe and happy, and she'll take anything the world throws at her if that means she can give it to them. Up next, we have the 58-moon-old Hatchfox and his mate, the 62-moon-old Ezrapelt, who is Gloomy, a great climber with steady paws. That's right, Hatchfox has a mate now. Ezrapelt was found injured by First Star on a patrol and offered a place in the clan. He's a soft-spoken cat and honestly a little bit shy. I think he didn't really feel like he had a place in the clan until several moons into the year after the fires. Ezrapelt was faced with a lot of tragedy in his life, but I think in the end it helped him see that sadness wasn't an emotion that should be shunned. So while Furs can help cheer up clanmates and make them smile, Ezrapelt will help them let out emotions and have a shoulder to cry on. He's a good listener, and while he may not always know what to say, he never lets any cat feel ashamed for feeling sad. I think this is how he and Hatchfox began to connect as well. Speaking of Hatchfox, it probably doesn't surprise you to know that he's had a very bad year. His entire life, all Hatchfox wanted to do was keep his brothers safe, and he feels like the moment they truly needed it, he failed them. The loss of Tigersaur and Hailstorm shattered him in a way he didn't think he could recover from. He fell right back into his old pattern of pushing himself too far and snapping at anyone who tried to get him to rest. Just like the previous years, he was just pushing and pushing himself, and I wasn't sure he could handle it this time. Then Ezrapelt showed up. I think it initially just started as just liking him because Ezrapelt is great at hunting and very helpful in rebuilding camp, but then once he realized it was a crush, he kind of freaked out. I think it was a combination of being scared of romance, but also scared that he would lose Ezrapelt. But the cat was very kind and understanding and let Hatchfox vent all of his worries, and Ezrapelt helped him see that the fact that life ends is what makes it so valuable, and that it's okay to feel happy or sad. That's what makes them who they are. And while both of them are still very gloomy and exhausted at the end of the year, they have each other, and they have a future to look forward to, and that's helping both of them to keep moving forward. Hayflood is up next, and he's 39 moons old and struggling as well. He lost both of his siblings and feels very overwhelmed. It reminds him far too much of what happened to his crush, Sorrelback, and he once again feels like he couldn't do anything to help. Just like his father, Daisy Spike, he's become anxious and sort of has been isolating himself from other cats. I think that's why First Star gave him an apprentice, hoping the young cat would help him keep his mind off things. It does help a bit, but it's hard for him to forget everything when he sees his cousin, Shivering Fade's morbid behavior, or sees his niece, Sandypaw, and remembers that she's an orphan now. And while he would love to be a part of her life, a part of him worries that if he were to do that, he would just fail her like he failed everyone else. Although, he does seem very curious about the new arrival, Kestrel, probably because he was on the patrol that they introduced themselves to, but I would love for it to turn into a friendship. Their confidence could be very helpful for him right now, and I think he needs someone he can rely on, and Kestrel seems like the type of cat to help him face his fears. Only time will tell, though. Either way, I hope this poor guy can catch a break next year. He's dealt with so much in such a short time. The 37-moon-old Ficklefeather and the 34-moon-old Billowhowl are up next, and these two have officially become mates. They announced it basically at the beginning of the year, but considering how much they'd been swooning over each other, I like to imagine that every cat saw it coming a mile away. These two are so adorable, and I love them with all my heart, but unfortunately, neither of them had a very good year. Starting with Ficklefeather, she did have an exciting first few moons, as you saw with that animatic. She did roll to lose sight in the eye that Hush Whisper managed to damage, but she isn't too beat up about it, because it means that she got Sapling Crest and Gentlekit out of there safely. She and Sapling Crest are still great friends and spend a lot of time together. It's helped them deal with a lot of their grief. During the fire, her back paw was badly injured as she refused to leave Sproutpaw behind. She was devastated to learn of her father's death, and even more horrified when her apprentice, Goldpaw, and her brother, Cricketstalk, died soon after. She felt very alone and lost, and was even wishing she could have spent more time with her mother, Brown Rapid. Her only true lifelines during these moments have been her best friend, Sapling Crest, and her beloved mate, Billowhowl. Speaking of Billowhowl, she was so happy at the beginning of the year. Not only did she get a little sibling, but she finally got to confess to her crush. She did have to wait a few moons before she asked Ficklefeather to be her mate because she got fleas, and there was no way she was doing a big romantic confession when that was the problem. She also seemed to have really gotten close to Sapling Crest too, and was even pranking her. It's nice to see these three get along. However, she is very shaken by her parent Conquerskip and her dad Rootclimb's deaths. She was on the patrol that they died on, as well as Goldpaw, who she was looking after while Ficklefeather recovered, and she barely escaped with her life. She felt horrible, and that guilt and heartbreak only grew more and more as cats died. She's extremely close to Duskfeather, her only remaining sibling, and while she tries to keep on a happy face, sometimes it's really hard. She's been pushing herself a lot more on patrols to try and find food, to the point that she has left herself exhausted and sore and with a lot of joint pain. Ficklefeather is always there for her in those moments, helping her rest and listening to her when she needs an ear, and she's there when her mate is struggling with her back paw, and sits quietly beside her when the sadness makes it too hard to speak. Despite their losses, both cats are very thankful they have each other, and they wouldn't give that up for anything. The 27-moon-old Jumbletalon is up next, along with her mate, the 22-moon-old Cherry Silk, who is now responsible with valuable insight. They became mates right at the end of the year. Starting with Jumbletalon, she had it rough. Losing all of her family so suddenly left her grief-stricken for a while. Her nightmares kept her up at night, and every time she tried to sleep, she could hear the yowls of dying cats. This is when she and Cherry Silk really started to connect, finding comfort in each other on those nights when sleep was hard to find. They patrolled often, and she was amazed at his hunting skills. He always caught so much. She was also on the patrol that discovered the first fire was an accident, finding remnants of a two-leg fire that wasn't put out properly. And I'm using this as a PSA moment. When you go camping or light a fire in an area, make sure you put it out properly. Drown it with water, add soil or dirt, stir it and feel it. If your fire is too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. Weather stations, weather apps, etc. all have ways to check what the daily fire hazard warning is, so use them. And if where you're camping says not to light fires, don't light a fire. It's for everyone's safety. Okay, PSA over, back to cats. As of the end of the year, they're still dealing with a lot of anxiety, but find comfort in their mate. Not only does Cherry Silk help her talk through it, but Cherry Silk is always willing to learn and has even asked Jumbletalon for advice fixing a mistake they made. I love that these two trust and communicate with each other so much. I'm glad they have each other after everything that happened. As for Cherry Silk, he's been dealing with a lot this year. He was very worried about his mom and tried to make sure she rested while he looked after his youngest sibling. He was also the cat that invited Fleckfreeze to join the clan. However, after the fire, he was devastated by the losses. He felt like he orphaned Fleckfreeze's 4 kits and was haunted by visions of his dead loved ones burning in the flames. He did his best to try and distract himself by taking care of camp and spending time with his family, but I think the loss of his sister, Coco Curl, was something he can never truly heal from. He adores his mate, Jumble Talon, so much, and they had a cute patrol where when Jumble Talon was showing off hunting techniques, Cherry Silk was too busy admiring them to actually pay attention. As for the mistake he talked to Jumble Talon about, I think he may have confessed how he feels responsible for Fleckfreeze's death, feeling like if he never invited the cat, his kits wouldn't have been orphaned. Jumble Talon helped him see that the fires, especially the second one, weren't his fault. None of them could have seen that coming, and while it did help, he still feels a bit guilty, and is definitely a bit protective of Fleckfreeze's remaining kits, wanting to keep them safe to make up for what happened. His friendship with Shivering Fade has unfortunately been pretty strained. He tried to talk to them and ask what's wrong, but Shivering Fade always tells him to go away and not bother him. He isn't sure what he did wrong, but he plans to keep trying until he can get through to his friend. As of the end of the year, he and Jumble Talon are preparing for the journey, more than happy to leave behind the forest and its horrible memories. Zinnia Flip is 24 moons old now and is troublesome and an incredible runner, which is a chaotic combination. He and Oakleaf got along really well towards the end of the apprenticeship, and he was honored for his energy. And immediately after his ceremony, he tripped over a tree trunk, but only his pride was bruised. He's still as mischievous as ever, or he was, but as you can imagine, he's not really feeling up to any mischief right now. He lost his sister and partner in crime, Elm Bramble, and never got a chance to connect with his older brother, Beamfog, before his death. Despite it having been moons since Elm Bramble's death, he still has moments where he turns to tell her something only to remember that she's gone. He's taken to wearing the same flower his sister used to, and is very protective of his remaining kin, which at this point is only his mother, Flower Patch, and his nephew, Ivypaw. He spends as much time with them as he can, especially his nephew, who is just as much of a troublemaker as he was. He did get an apprentice in Pinepaw, who he comforted after the apprentice was terrified by his scary ghost stories. Their death hit him hard. He hates that so many of his clanmates died so young, and is furious that some of the deaths were not accidental. However, he doesn't want to fight. I think maybe if it was just him, he would, but Ivypaw is still so young and his mother is very old now. He doesn't want either of them to have to face war, especially after the horror stories he's heard about the war with Root Clan and Hushstar's reign. He's more than ready to leave. He just hopes that those they lost will follow them to their new home. Up next, we have Dusk Feather, who's 20 moons old, strict, and a camp keeper, and his mate, Stoke Branch, who is 18 moons old, nervous, fairly clairvoyant, and a good speaker. These two are official mates. I love them so much. Let's start with Stoke Branch. She was injured by a dog this year that got a lucky hit on her, but since a cat from StarClan wanted to warn her, I'm saying that she had a vision beforehand, which is why she knows about her clairvoyant powers. However, since she's still young, she's not sure how to use them, and is devastated that she didn't see something as important as the fires, or the flood. She was honored for her devotion, and was so happy that Sapling Crest was among the cats cheering her new name. She really looks up to her big sister now that they've reconnected, and appreciates Sapling Crest's apology for the way she acted before. During the fire, she unfortunately lost half her tail while escaping, and grieved the death of her father alongside Sapling Crest. She prayed to StarClan for guidance a lot, and did her best to help her sister take care of her 5 kits. Despite her age, she actually has an apprentice right now, and is doing her best, although her nerves sometimes make her wonder if she's really good at it, but she knows she has cats who are there to remind her she's a great warrior. One of those cats being Dusk Feather. He became a warrior early in the year and was honored for his loyalty. Also, he and his little sister, who we'll talk about later, have Root Clan blood, as Conquer Skip's father was a Root Clan cat. I'm honestly surprised they grew up to be strict, but I think I'm going to connect that to the fact that Lilypaw sacrificed themselves so he could escape the fire. Despite them only being 6 moons apart, he was horrified and felt like he should have been the one protecting them, not the other way around. After that, he vowed to be a cat that could protect the ones he loves. I think this is what led him to reciprocate Stoke Branch's feelings as he watched her work hard on patrols and go out of her way to help her sister. It made him miss his siblings in StarClan and often made him run to spend time with his older sister, Billowhowl. He also got an apprentice in young Sprucepaw, only for Sprucepaw to die during the floods. It was Lilypaw all over again, except this time, even as he tried to save them, he failed. The only thing that kept Duskfeather from completely falling apart was his loved ones, who pulled him out of the rain even as he desperately tried to find the washed away cats. He's dealing with green cough because of that as of the end of the year, and part of him feels like he deserves it for failing again. I think he's secretly hopeful that their new home will be safe, but he's too scared to voice that aloud and would rather wait and see what the future brings them. And I know I just talked about how sad they were, and then they're both smiling in the drawing, but I sketched it before I finished the script, and I didn't change it because these two deserve to be happy, okay? Let them have this! Up next is Tangle Sky, who is now 14 moons old, troublesome, a good fighter, and a den builder. They were initially mentored by Root Climb, but after his death, Garlic Moon was the one to finish up her training. Despite her chaotic nature, she was a very good apprentice, and on her first patrol was praised for her enthusiasm as they practiced hunting techniques. Unfortunately, the year was not very kind to her, as she lost both Lilypaw and Rosemarypaw in the fire, then her mother, and finally her parent Hornet Dusk. It's only her and Sproutbeak now, and they rely on each other a lot. Tangle Sky has also worked very hard to help provide for the struggling clan, and has proven herself to be a great hunter. She even fought off foxes to get prey. Her scar was from the dense shrubbery that tore at her pelt, which I imagine she didn't notice as she was focused on chasing down some prey running into it. I imagine she came back covered in blood, but didn't care because the prey didn't get away despite that. At her warrior ceremony, she was fittingly honored for her resilience, and while she did get an apprentice in Scrubpaw, the flood took them away far too soon, a reminder of the way she lost her siblings. She's trying not to focus on it, instead finding herself very curious about the new arrival, Kestrel, and wondering what their new home will be like. However, I think there's a big part of her that wonders if moving will solve anything, or if they're just going to face the same struggles over and over again in a different place. It sounds exhausting to her, and she isn't sure if she could handle it for the rest of her life, but what other choice does she have? Sproutbeak is right after her sister. She's also 14 moons old and is compassionate, a great teacher, and a good kid sitter. She was apprenticed to Goldenstripe and really enjoyed learning with him as her new mentor. However, the fire shook that optimism a lot. That's actually where her scar came from, which I picked specifically because I rolled her over and over in the fire generator. Usually I would disregard that, but she was compassionate as an apprentice too, so I imagine she just kept guiding cats out and running back in until she couldn't anymore, and tried to get Ficklefeather to leave her behind and save herself. They both escaped, scarred, but alive. And while Sproutbeak is happy she helped so many of her clanmates, she wishes her siblings and parents were still with her in Tangle Sky. She's quite worried about her sister, who always seems to be overworking herself, even to the point of getting a scar. She learned as much about hunting as she could to help, and is always willing to take advice and give it when asked. At her warrior ceremony, she was honored for her emotional maturity. She's doing her best to keep honoring that, as she tries to urge her sister to rest, and often helps babysit Plumeria's kits, feeling it only right that she looks after them since her mentor, Goldenstripe, and his mate, Acacia, won't be able to. She's far more optimistic than her sister, and feels certain that moving is the right choice, believing StarClan brought Kestrel to them for a reason. She hopes the new territory will be a place they can all be safe and happy, and maybe, one day, her own kits can grow up there as well, as she really wants a family of her own. But not until she's older. Right now, her main goal is to look after her sister and her new apprentice, and make sure their clan is ready for the journey ahead. Lavender Shade is now the only surviving kit of Rivergrove's litter. He's 14 moons old, insecure, and fast as the wind. He also actually has Root Clan blood, because I did take the time to check all the cats who had half-clan kits, not just Conquer Skip, and see where they came from. And it seems like Rivergrove was secretly meeting with Poppy Stripe of Root Clan. Unfortunately, Poppy Stripe is dead, but that's still a fun fact for ya! He was apprenticed to Sapling Crest, who intimidated him quite a lot with her cold exterior, but tried his best, even if he tended to be a little clumsy. He'd easily catch prey one minute, then trip and fall into a creek the next. I imagine that Sapling Crest recruited Ficklefeather to teach him how to swim, just in case, and honestly, that may have been what saved him during the flood. He was honored for his pragmatism at his warrior ceremony, but it was hard for him to celebrate, especially without his family. He does have Lotus Paw, Fudge's last remaining kit. Although Lotus Paw is technically his uncle, they're so close in age that they see each other more as brothers than anything else, and having each other has helped them deal with the tragedies a lot. As for his feelings about the move, I think he's quite uncertain. He wants to hope for the future, but he's also terrified of it. He's really trying not to think about it right now, and instead tries to focus on finding food in what's left of the forest. He's also spent evenings regaling the clan with stories of the thieving fox, the Sundrown Place, and the starbugs. I imagine Kestrel, who's the newest to the clan, helped encourage him past his securities, as they knew none of the clan's legends and wanted to hear them. It helped him get his mind off of things for a while, and he really appreciated them for that. It's given him a little more faith that maybe things will turn out alright, which is something he really needs right now. Up next is the last of our new warriors, Foggy Breeze. He's 13 moons, lonesome, a fast runner, and clever. He adored his adoptive parents, First Star, Willowthrift, and Weedpelt a lot, and was very close with his siblings, as well as his mentor and big sister, Coco Curl. He was an excitable apprentice who was always up early to train and had a bit of a troublesome streak, always trying to eavesdrop on the older cats. Unfortunately, that didn't last. The many deaths this year hurt him a lot, which I think is what led to his lonesome personality. After the floods, he was staring at the walls of his den in silence, refusing fresh kill and wondering how life could go on after they'd lost so many. He was honored for his composure at his warrior ceremony, but he wasn't really focused on that. He spends a lot of time on his own, staring at the charred remains of the forest and just thinking. He always brings home prey, but he never really spends time with anyone outside of patrols other than his mother. Even though she still has lives to spare, he's terrified of losing her, and this fear extends to his siblings, both older and younger, who he is a little too nervous to interact with. He feels disconnected in a way he can't really explain and just wishes he could find a way to distract himself, but nothing works. He hopes that their new home, wherever that is, can be a place where he can finally feel okay, but he's not getting his hopes up, not after everything. On to our apprentices, starting with the 11-moon-old Applepaw. She's 11 moons, careful, and a lover of stories, and is one of Fleck Freeze's 2 surviving kits. She was mentored by Comfrey Fluff initially, but was given to Hatch Fox after the older cat's death. As a kit, she was always wanting to do the right thing and hoping that her dad was watching her apprentice ceremony with pride. She's a very cautious cat and always likes to have an eye on things and a plan in place before she acts. This definitely helped her on patrols, including one where she managed to avoid getting caught in a 2-leg trap. Applepaw really looked up to her mentor and misses her a lot. She isn't sure how to feel about Hatch Fox, but she's not one to complain when she'll be a warrior soon. She and her sister are really close, and she seems to be the voice of reason between the two of them. She's currently preparing for the journey ahead of them, and I like to imagine she's helping with gathering traveling herbs and stuff, and is also annoying Sapling Crest every now and then with her suggestions for plans for the journey next moon. She's growing up to be such a mom friend, and I love her for that. Up next is Applepaw's brother, the 11-moon-old Laurelpaw, who is fierce and a picky nest builder. Unlike their more mature and cautious sister, Laurelpaw never knows when to sit still. As a kid, they snuck out of camp right after the first fire, which the clan was horrified about, but he was brimming with pride even while getting scolded. He was mastering battle moves he was practicing incorrectly, and eventually was apprenticed to Furs, immediately wanting to do something really cool to impress the clan. They actually did get to do something pretty cool, as they helped their mentor bring back a lost Root Clan kits to their camp, and even met the Root Clan leader, who they thought was scary but kinda cool. They weren't sure about the deputy, though, for reasons we'll get into later. As for the rest of the year, they've been practicing their battle moves and rushing around helping with hunts. And while they have a talent for den building, they get bored by it pretty quickly, so they only do it when they absolutely have to. The only cat who can really get them to slow down and think is his sister, Applepaw, who he likes to tease and say that she always thinks she knows best, to which Applepaw always replies, well, one of us has to do the thinking. While a lot of cats are uncertain about the journey, he's pretty excited and looking forward to seeing new things and smelling new smells. He just hopes his loved ones in StarClan will get to follow them, as he does miss them a lot. Next up is the only surviving kit of Fudge's last litter, Lotuspaw, who is 11 moons old, loyal, and a careful listener. I mentioned this in my Rebel Clan video, but I'll mention it here too. The father of both of Fudge's litters is Pheasant from Rebel Clan, so it seems like HoundClan will be bringing all 4 clans with them in a way. Lotuspaw was a shy kit and liked to hide in the medicine cat's den to get away from the rowdier children. He also was a bit of a know-it-all, correcting other kits on trivial stuff. He was apprenticed to Billowhowl and was immediately wanting to make sure the clan was fed, which I understand, especially after the fires. On his first patrol, he and his mentor led a dog away from camp, and later on he helped fight off a fox, too. He really looks up to his mentor and listens to her and the other adults intently all the time. He wants to learn all their cool strategies. He also really likes Applepaw and another apprentice, Sandypaw, and is glad there's at least some other cats who think about things around here. After the second fire, he was very shaken and threw himself selflessly into a battle with a dog, which his clan was proud of, but Billowhowl reminded him that he doesn't need to do things alone. He'll always have his clanmates to help him. He listened, but he still feels very lonely, especially after the loss of his sibling, Partridge Paw. He spends a lot of his free time with Lavender Shade and hopes that their family will help them on the journey that lies ahead. Sandypaw is the single kit that Conquer, Skip, and Root Climb had before their deaths. She is 11 moons old, thoughtful, has an active imagination, and heterochromia, which is cool. She was a very sickly kit, getting heat stroke when she was young, which I think made Conquerskip terrified after losing Petal Kit in their last litter. But she recovered and was happily helping clean out the nursery. She likes Lotus Paw a lot and thinks he's pretty cool, even if he can be a know-it-all sometimes, and is great friends with Gentle Paw as well. She misses her parents dearly, and at her apprentice ceremony she made a silent promise to them that she would take care of the clan in their absence. She likes her mentor Zinnia Flip, as they help her remember things like navigating the leaf litter, which helps her make flawless catches. She also seems to be very close with the First Star family, as on one moon she was getting pranked by Foggy Paw while also pranking Coco Curl. She does seem to have a slight disregard for the rules, though, as she was caught sharing prey with a rogue who was chased off by patrol. Considering her age, I don't think it was any sort of secret romance. Instead, I think it may have been the cat who her parent, Conquerskip, had their 5-kit litter with. She felt really bad that they got chased off and made sure to bring her big brother, Duskfeather, to meet the cat so they could meet and say farewell. As for the journey, her active imagination means she has a lot of ideas about what the new territory will look like, so she's excited to see where they'll go, but hopes that they can all make it there safe. Next up, we have the 10-moon-old Slopepaw, who is First Star and Wheatpelt's single kit. He's compassionate and is constantly climbing. He was a bit spoiled by First Star, but I can't really blame her, considering both his dads died so soon after his birth, and she also lost to life in the same moon. He didn't mind. He always wanted to snuggle with her and hear stories about his family. His cardinal feathers are actually from himself, as he was playing with them and decided to wear them. He was apprenticed to Hayflood, and on his first patrol helped dig up lizards, which I don't think he'd ever eaten before, but they can't really be picky right now, and he thought they were tasty, and actually succeeded in digging up more near the end of the year. They're definitely his favorite food. He was on the same patrol that found Kestrel at the end of the year and is very curious about them. I think he may also be nudging his mentor towards the cat as he sees how the cat's confidence rubs off on his mentor, and he wants Hayflood to smile more often. He really looks out for a lot of his clanmates. As for his feelings about the clan moving, he's all for it, especially after he overheard his mom and heard she might retire when they get there. He can see how exhausted his mom is and hopes that she means what she said because he wants to spend as much time with her as he can. Up next, we have Furs' surprise kits. Starting with the 9-moon-old Spotted Paw, who's troublesome and quick-witted, a deadly combination. Don't worry, Furs didn't add any more half-clan kits. Both Spotted Paw and her sister have outsider roots, so probably a kitty pet or loner. Spotted Kit liked to spend her time hunting bugs and refusing to take her naps, and eventually was apprenticed to Stoat Branch, giving the nervous cat quite a run for her money. But I think Spotted Paw has actually been good for Stoat Branch, as they really seem to encourage each other. Whenever Stoat Branch suggests an idea, Spotted Paw would always exclaim that Stoat Branch was super cool and that idea was awesome! This apprentice has a lot of enthusiasm for life in general, and it really cheers up other cats. So much so that I think she's able to get away with pranks and causing more trouble than other cats could, which she sees as a good benefit. She's excited for the journey, but plans to stick close to her mom and sister during it, as she wants all of them to get there safe and sound together. Speaking of her sister, we have Sleek Paw. She is compassionate, quick-witted, and a careful listener. I was going to change her name initially because Sleek Mist was already here, but after his death I didn't have the heart to. I think in universe the name did lead to a lot of cats to look at them sadly or kind of coddle them, as she was wishing other cats would stop babying her. She didn't help much though, especially after she fell into a river and had to be saved by Duskfeather, which led to even more babying, especially from him. They were apprenticed to First Star, surprisingly, and were quite smug about it. She caught a mouse on her first patrol and was very happy. She does push herself a little too hard in trying to help the camp, especially after the last flood, to the point that her paws were sore and bleeding. She insists that she's fine, even as they nudge her into the medicine den, and as they come close to the big journey. She wants everything to be ready so they can all make it there safe. Up next, we have the 2 surviving kits from Oakleaf and Sapling Crest's litter. First up is the 8-moon-old Cedar Paw, who is insecure and quick to make peace. As a kit, he and Gentle Paw were very sheltered, especially after the incident in the Dark Forest. I think he felt a little more ignored than Gentle Paw sometimes, but felt even worse when he thought that he didn't want to be jealous of the only sibling he has left. Ezra Pelt helped to encourage him, saying that he would make a great clanmate one day, but he still isn't sure. He was apprenticed to Jumble Talon, who knows a thing or two about being nervous, and was able to help him feel better. After they only managed to find mice on his first patrol, she reminded him that during Leaf Bear, even the smallest catch could feed someone, and in Leaf Bear, a few mice is still definitely a success. While he still deals with a lot of worries and tends to freeze up when he has to make choices, he knows he has his mom, brother, and mentor to help him. He just wishes he could feel excited for the upcoming journey, but he just keeps worrying about what could go wrong, especially after all he's lost at such a young age. Gentle Paw is up next. He's calm, oddly observant, and was born mute. The clan initially worried that it might have something to do with the Dark Forest, but it doesn't. His mother was very protective of him, not just because of the Dark Forest thing, but also because he looks almost exactly like Oakleaf, and he got kitten cough right after he was born. Sapling Crest was terrified and thought that this was maybe Hush Star's way of getting back at her, but he actually survived. The clan is learning how to communicate with him. I imagine they're helping create their own version of sign language with ears, paws, and tail movements. He was able to use this, as well as his oddly observant trait, to ask his mom why she was sort of a helicopter parent. I think Sapling Crest told him a watered-down version of what happened, which led to him hiding in fear afterwards. I think he was worried that maybe Hush Star picked him because he was going to do something awful in the future. Why else would he be taken to the Dark Forest so young? Thankfully, his mentor, who's actually Ficklefeather, told him of her own abilities and assured him that the only cat who gets to decide his future is him. Since then, he feels a lot more encouraged and has taken to Fickle's swimming and climbing lessons with ease, and also helped chase off a rogue. He's doing his best to spend time with Cedarpaw, who he knows feels left out, but it's hard to so soon to the beginning of the journey. He really hopes that he, Cedarpaw, and their mom get a chance to spend time together as a family in their new home, and he also hopes that the Dark Forest gets lost along the way and won't follow them. Our last member of the clan and the youngest of our apprentices is Ivypaw. He's 8 moons old, charismatic with an active imagination, and quick to make peace. He was a troublesome kid who liked to climb too high and hunt bugs, and thought he could outsmart a fox. He was mentored initially by Brightbone, but after her death in the flood, his new mentor is now Sproutbeak. At his apprentice ceremony, he wished he could be happier, but he just wished that his parents could have been with him. On his first patrol, he managed to break the awkward tension with a Rebel Clan patrol, I imagine by asking them a bunch of silly questions of how they can climb so high and have they ever managed to climb the moon? That would be so cool! He looks up to Zinnia Flip a lot and loves to help him around camp or play fight with him. He also loves to spend time with his grandma, Flower Patch, and ask stories about his dad. He loves his family so much, and considering he's still so young, he's more excited for the journey than anything else, and thinks it's going to be a great adventure. He's going to have so many awesome stories, he just knows it. That's all for HoundClan this year. This will be the last year in these territories as they move and try to find somewhere else safe and away from the other clans. Speaking of them, for the last time before we move, let's see how the other 2 clans are doing, starting with Root Clan. Ginger Star is still the leader of Root Clan, and I'm kinda worried about him. His fierceness seems to be working against him. He actually attacked a cat for speaking out against him, the same thing Hush Star did to Furflame in year 1, and is getting more and more hostile with other clans and his own clanmates. He actually has quite a bit of dislike for a lot of them, which really worries me. Next to him is actually his mate and the deputy Brooke. Not only are they a good storyteller, but they have a deep Dark Forest bond. And while he does love his children, he actually has a lot of dislike for Ginger Star that is not platonic. I think he actually used to be a member of the rogue group that's been giving Rebel Clan trouble, but decided that joining a clan and cozying up to a leader was easier. I'm not sure how much Ginger Star's rash behavior is from him and how much is Ginger Star, but either way it seems that Brooke may not be entirely satisfied with just being a deputy. I really don't trust him at all. Onto our medicine cats, where it's time for me to drop a little bit of a secret. Cleaver is a former loner who joined the clan at the beginning of the year and is actually Plumeria's friend and the donor for her kits. He doesn't care about the rules about half-clan kits and thinks it's stupid, but then again, he doesn't exactly like the leader or the deputy, so there's that. Like I mentioned before, their relationship is purely platonic, and I think Cleaver is also Arrow Ace. He just wanted to help out his friend. However, like I mentioned before, none of the cats in the clans know HoundClan is leaving yet, and he does want to be a part of the kits' lives as much as he can be, so we'll have to wait to see what he does when the plans of the journey are announced to everyone else. Bow Meadow is still here and is not doing good. Some of his kits have died this year, and he doesn't think the hostility with the other clans is a good idea at all. However, Ginger Star, his brother, just yells at him and says that a healer won't know anything about leading. He isn't even listening to Bow Meadow about StarClan now. Bow Meadow does not trust Brooke at all and worries that their clan is turning into the very thing they feared not too long ago. Up next, we have the newly named Rye Branch and her apprentice, Oatpaw. These two are a pair and a delight, and honestly the faces of the medicine den right now. They do their best to make cats feel safe and happy even as tensions rise, and they really seem to trust each other. That doesn't mean they're unaware to the tension, definitely not. Rye Branch does her best to keep Oatpaw away from it all, but a cat would have to be foolish to not see the warning signs of what might be a dark future for their clan. Also, fun fact, Oatpaw is Ginger Star's niece. That definitely isn't helping the nepotism allegations, but nobody's stupid enough to say that to Ginger Star's face. And now on to Mist Clan, where it's finally time for me to drop a bombshell. because Jagged Star was the one who started the second fire. Not only that, but he and his mate basically did a silent coup of MissClan. Flower Star lost her final life when she was tracking paw prints, and the game said she didn't see the attack coming, which I'm going to say lore-wise was Jagged taking her out of the picture. However, Snail Star is still alive and out there somewhere, so he doesn't have his full 9 lives. Not that anyone other than him knows that. While he does seem very clever, I think he also tends to not think things all the way through. Because while burning the forest did make it so HoundClan has to leave, it means he can't use the territory either. He also has no idea that Plumeria saw him and caught him in the act, but he doesn't seem like he would care if anyone did. Either way, he feels like he won. As for the deputy, it's his mate, Darkpelt, and this cat is just as bad as her mate. Sweet Wisp, the previous deputy, was murdered by an unknown killer, and eventually it was revealed to be her when she told her apprentice, who agreed with her and said Sweet Wisp deserved it. Good job corrupting the youth, Darkpelt. I think between the two of them, Darkpelt is definitely better at planning things out and was likely the one who helped orchestrate Flower Star's death, too. I don't know how much of a hand she had in the fire, but she doesn't seem too perturbed either way, quite happy with where she and her mate are right now, and is very eager to show the other clans just how strong MissClan really is. As for the medicine cats, we have Weedspot, who is very overwhelmed. They're a former rogue and I think were probably kicked out of their group due to their age, or maybe the fact they didn't want to fight. Either way, they had hoped MissClan would be a safe place for them, but the new leader and deputy remind her far too much of the group she just escaped from. At her age, she doesn't know if she could find another safe place, and she doesn't want to leave Pullback all alone. So she's doing her best to help and hoping that MissClan will realize how dangerous their leader is before it's too late. Speaking of Pullback, he's very shaken up right now. Sweet Wisp, his own sister, was murdered, and he knows it was murder. However, I don't think he knows it was Darkpelt, because Darkpelt is his daughter, something I forgot to mention last year, so I don't think he wants to suspect her. He's still desperately trying to convince her that StarClan is against this, but she won't listen. Part of him wants to run away, but if he leaves, he knows that the only cats left will be the elderly Weedspot and the newest medicine cat that he doesn't trust at all. Also, fun fact, his mom is Astrid Spot, so that means Aspen Kit and Dragon Kit are actually his niece and nephew. Not that he's ever going to get a chance to find that out, considering, everything that his clan has done to HoundClan. And unfortunately, Midge Swarm died this year while giving birth to her kits, but she did manage to train an apprentice before that, and that apprentice is Mulberry Falcon. She was an abandoned kit taken in by the clan, and unfortunately it seems that her loyalty is leaning towards Jagged Star. She ignores the lectures from Pullback and often sneaks off to get battle training from the leader and deputy. I think she may honestly be visiting the Dark Forest too, as a lot of the StarClan statuses about her have been that they know her secret. So yeah, that's not good. Lastly, we have our mediators. We have Darkpelt's brother Fogfoot, who I can confidently say is not on his sister's side. He never liked Jagged, and he knows the new leader had something to do with Flower Star's death, but he doesn't dare say this out loud. He also knows his Aunt Sweet Wisp's death was no accident, and suspects his sister. He's done trying to get her to listen. He realized she never will. Now he just wants to keep his family and his loved ones safe, and if that means leaving the clan, then so be it. And finally, we have the newly named Cinder Creek. She's sort of terrified right now. She knows what Fogfoot suspects and thinks he might be right, but what are they supposed to do about it? She also knows that Mulberry Falcon is up to stuff too, and actually has a decent amount of dislike towards her. Not only that, but her surviving sibling died this year. Truthfully, the only reason she hasn't run away yet is her own fear, as well as the fact that her parents are still alive. There's also the smallest, tiniest hope in her that maybe things will turn out okay in the end, but as the moons pass by, that hope gets weaker and weaker. She doesn't know what to do anymore. So, yeah, HoundClan is a mess, fire and floods, the other clans are kind of falling apart, and HoundClan is getting out of here. We'll have to see how that goes next time. And truth be told, next year may be the last year of HoundClan ever. Unless you guys want more of them, I may end it next year with the end of the journey. Let me know what you think. But either way, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. Remember to take care of yourselves, make sure your smoke detector has batteries, and have a good day.